Oli resigns. What next for Nepal? As you saw on the exclusive visuals that News9 has now secured, the chaos unfolding on the streets of Kathmandu. What was most telling is right now playing up on your screen, Finance Minister Bishnu Prasad Paudel beaten, kicked by furious demonstrators. A shocking image of how deep Nepal's crisis has now run. Take a look at that visual yet again. Even Sher Bahadur Deuba, that is ex-Prime Minister, and his wife Arzu Rana Deuba, Foreign Affairs Minister, were beaten brutally, and all this happening in full public view. That is the situation that Nepal has gotten into. There is chaos, there is confusion, and there is complete anarchy in what was once famously called the Mountain Kingdom. You saw the kind of injuries that they had gotten into, and Nepal army later rescued former Prime Minister Deuba as well as his wife, the serving finance minister, all of them attacked by angry protesters on the streets of Kathmandu. What began as a small spark, a lot of people would say, that being protest against a social media ban, which later, of course, the myth has been exploded, later turned into Nepal's worst unrest and chaos in decades, which left 19 dead, over 100 injured, and also ultimately, after a lot of chaos, after a lot of protest, after a lot of public anger, forcing Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign. As flames engulfed Oli's private residence in Bhaktapur, protesters danced in celebration, hailing the moment as victory against corruption and decades of dynastic politics. Defying an indefinite curfew, demonstrators stormed Nepal's parliament, breached security parameters, and set parts of the building on fire. The helicopter that you see on your screen, on one part of your screen, is supposed to be carrying Oli to safety. Local media reports said that Oli was flown out of the capital by helicopter as protesters gathered outside his residence in Balkot and torched his property. So in order for him to be safe, helicopters took him to safety. The wave of violence has not spared Nepal's political establishment. The central office of the Nepali Congress was vandalized. Homes of senior leaders, including Congress President Sher Bahadur Deuba, came under severe attack. The CPN UML's Lalitpur office was also set ablaze. Protesters, many of them young, accused leaders of decades of corruption and neglect. Security forces responded with tear gas and rubber bullets, but reports of gunfire and bullet injuries have emerged despite official claims that no live rounds were authorized. The Nepali army has now been deployed to secure critical installations. Tribhuvan International Airport, Nepal's main international getaway, has been shut down amid rising smoke and violence in surrounding areas. The demonstrations have spread beyond Kathmandu. Hundreds from towns near the India-Nepal border are marching to join the protest. Witnesses say convoys of young demonstrators are pouring into the Nepalese capital. Amid this chaos, Indian families too are being stranded. Nearly 100 people from Kerala, from Kozhikode and Malappuram remain stuck near Kathmandu's Goshala. Nepal today finds itself at a dangerous flashpoint, with Gen Z protesters demanding nothing short of a corruption-free future, while its political leadership faces a crisis of survival. All right, to speak more on the Nepal crisis, I am now being joined by some experts. Gajendra Buddhatalk, Editor-in-Chief, Taksar Media Group. He's joining us live from Kathmandu. Sachin Timilsina, who's a youth leader, Nepal Congress Party, is also joining us. And Sagun Sundar Lawati, leader, Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, is also joining us. Thank you so much for making the time, particularly at such a difficult time. Let me first go to Sachin. Sachin, you know, it's such a, yes, Gen Z is angry. We all know this. Young people, when the young people get angry, as we saw in Bangladesh, you know, also in Sri Lanka, you know, some time back, then the nation, the ground itself shakes, because the energy of the youth, when they pick up cudgels, it means it's a dangerous signal for the people, for the government, the ruling dispensation, as it were. Sachin Timilsina, you know, however much Oli must have said that, you know, we have to be patient, we need to watch the situation. Do you think it was only the ban on social media platforms which led to the chaos that we see unfolding in the country, Sachin?
Not at all. Not at all. And this is an accumulation of all the frustration, all that pain, the feeling of being lost because of the politics of, all this lack of sense, lack of affection towards the people and their demands, their needs, not understanding the aspirations of people. And this is an accumulation of all those little defeats that Nepali youths actually thought they faced in the last 20 years. Me being in Nepali Congress, I was very vocal about all these things that could have potentially happened, and which unfortunately unfolded today. But this is not just social media banned outrage. This was an outrage against the kind of hegemony, the political authoritative regime inside the political parties, and especially against today's political establishment, which is in the rule since the last 4 decades. So the social media ban actually lit the eventual fire. But this is not just about social media ban. It's about the apathy and the corruption, all those feelings, and the people felt lost in so many occasions in the past as well, when the political leadership went against the will of the people, especially the youngsters. So this is a result of all of those combined, and I'm not much surprised as this is unfolded in this manner.
Sundar Lawati, let me bring you in at this point after what Sachin said. Sagun Sundar Lawati, you know, Oli kept on saying that, you know, there is somebody else, there is a third hand, there is a foreign hand, there is vested interest, which is making this absolutely, this unfold on the streets of Nepal, in our country. Oh, I think we've lost our connection to Sagun Sundar Lawati. Let me bring the other expert in, and that being Gajendra Buddhatalk, Editor-in-Chief, Taksar Media Group. Gajendraji, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast. Gajendraji, you know, when young people protest, like I said, the ground shakes. You know, the thing is, do you think one of the main reasons was that here are a bunch of people who seem to be completely apathetic to what the young want. The young do not want luxuries, Gajendraji. A lot of people may say, oh, you want social media, you want, you know, Insta. No, that's not correct. They want jobs. First of all, they want someone to listen to them. I think, Gajendraji, do you think that, you know, the ruling dispensation, as it were, now we should say former, had become completely apathetic to the needs, to the wants of the people of Nepal?
You are completely right, because the frustration of the Nepalese youth is we called in economics that is the cumulative. You know you understand the cumulative mean. It is one by one. Uh, it is every year. It is frustration is collected by the youth in the heart of the youth. They didn't get jobs. They didn't get the opportunities. Some of political parties, leaders, and his surroundings only take all the opportunities. And the youth, I said my son's generation, because my son has now he is in 22 years. He's totally frustrated, and he said, oh, in Nepali, our all of our son and daughter said, Nepal ma basera ke paincha? What we get in stay in Nepal? And the every year more than 1 lakh Nepalese students aged 17
Sorry,
to
Gajendraji, to
21
interject, we are
is
getting
going
another
to
breaking news.
study in.
Ramchandra Podel, the president, has also put in his papers, resign. That is the breaking news. You first heard it here. Ramchandra Podel, president, I mean, he was president until he resigned a little while ago. He's also quit. So a bit of a chaos and confusion in Nepal as of now, and we have to perhaps now focus on what next. And let me go to Sachin yet again. Sachin ji, tell me something. Your prime minister has gone. Your president has put in his papers. The finance minister has been pilloried on the streets. Several other ministers have been beaten on the streets. What next for Nepal, Sachin? What do you think is on the anvil for Nepal?
First up, yes, the president has resigned, and now we've moved into another constitutional vacancy. So, by which there is no executive chief and there is no constitutional head as well. So, our constitution has not imagined such situation, right? So, this is a massive vacuum that has come up. I think now the only force, the only institution that we can fall back to or lean upon is the Nepal Army. So, we're actually waiting for the statement of Nepal Army as well. Nepal Army did proposed a statement from the secretaries of the government, the existing government so far. So this is a complete vacancy, constitutional vacancy that we have moved into now. And even with the protests, there is no unanimous leader to the protest. So we actually do not know where we're heading right now. In bits and bits, we hear some demands from the Gen Z protesters, but we don't know who is actually in hold of that Gen Z protest. The closest one being the mayor of Kathmandu, Balinsha, because he seems to have the largest amount of legitimacy in this
Right.
protest, and he was actually called by the protesters to lead the protest himself. However, now this is turned into an unprecedented situation in Nepal, and we do not know where we're heading to. It's a matter of unrest, and this is a clean example of what political apathy can lead to, and it is unfolded in the most disastrous way possible.
All right. Sagun Sundar Lavati is also with us, leader of Rashtriya Prajatantra Party. Thank you so much, Sagun Sundar Lavati, for joining us on this broadcast. Tell me something. When Oli took over, there was a 7-point agenda or a 7-point deal, and one of the top ones on that was to create kind of the anomalies which were there in the constitution, in the electoral process, to correct that. What happened to that? Today we are seeing a constitutional crisis unfolding in Nepal. So is it in more ways than one Oli's ploy just to stay in power, also the president in cahoots, rather than do this? If they had moved on this, do you agree that we wouldn't have seen what we are seeing right now, Sagun Sundar Lavati?
Not only Oli, if we see successive governments which were in power since the last 10 or 10 or odd years, they have been rather not responsible, accountable to the people, even to the constitution as such. Oli and Deuba, Congress and UML, the first, the largest party, and the second largest party, which is very unconventional, unheard of in a parliamentary democracy for two largest party to come together and form a government. But that happened in Nepal, and they, like you said, they promised to have amendments, revision in the constitution, but that never materialized. So I think it'll be safe to say that they were only using it as a ploy to rise to the power, seat in the government. So I think it had to happen. This change had to happen, which was very unprecedented and unexpected, rather, which happened in over a time of not even 2 days. In fact, it started yesterday, and by the midday today, the prime minister resigned, and just now, as we were uh, talking to you, the president resigned. So we don't know which way the country is heading towards. It's not a normal situation. There was a public notice from the security chiefs. They together called for a dialogue between Gen Z, the protesters, and the political forces. But again, like there's no Gen Z is not a organized, formal, structured unit or party or group. So again, let's see. We'll have to see how things move ahead. Like the change was inevitable, but again, how to take it forward, we still don't know.
All right, all the guests, please do stay, and let me also bring the viewers up to speed. After the Prime Minister, the President, Ramchandra Patel, also resigned, we're talking about Nepal. And ladies and gentlemen, like all the experts are saying, this isn't a flash in the pan. This isn't that a couple of Gen Z protesters got together and decided, okay, we don't have social media and we shall start the protest. No way. It was long coming. Nepal streets are burning today. But this anger did not erupt overnight. Make no mistake, for years, dissent has been quietly but steadily brewing against a political class accused of corruption, mismanagement and failure to deliver. Whether it's jobs, whether it's promises or anything else, the failure to deliver. A World Bank report has noted that while remittances have fueled Nepal's growth, they have not created quality jobs at home. With 82% of the workforce in informal employment, many young Nepalese see leaving the country as their only option. At the same time, almost every senior leader carries a cloud of corruption. Now, let's take it's almost like reading, I'm sorry to be using this phrase, but a rogues gallery. KP Sharma Oli faces a contempt case over illegal land conversion. Madhav Nepal, Baburam Bhattarai and Khilraj Regmi are linked to land scams. Prachanda is accused of misappropriating funds meant for Maoist fighters during the peace process. Sher Bahadur Deoba has faced allegations of aircraft purchase kickbacks, while his wife, Foreign Minister Arzu Rana Deoba, has been questioned over refugee fraud. What is the result? A political system where corruption is entrenched, accountability is zero, and public trust is collapsing. Key events over the years have eroded confidence in Oli. Let's look at this. May 2021, lost parliamentary confidence vote. 124 lawmakers were against him. July 2021, Supreme Court reinstated the parliament, ordered Deoba as PM. July 2025, which is, right here, corruption scandals hit cabinet ministers. September 2025, social media ban sparks nationwide protest in which 19 died and counting and 100 plus injured and counting. In 2025, Nepo Kids campaign exposes political nepotism. So when Gen Z, the young, hit the streets, their anger tapped into something deeper, years of frustration with leaders who enrich themselves while opportunities for young people dwindle steadily. Oli's fall is being celebrated not just as the exit of a prime minister, but as a long overdue reckoning, a rebellion against a political order that has failed an entire generation. Also joining us, apart from the experts, is Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, Research Director, Nepal Institute for International Cooperation. Let me go to Dr. Jaiswal. Dr. Jaiswal, thank you so much for making the time, sir. I want to ask you that the recent protest where certain protesters hit the streets saying we want monarchy back, we want royalty back, what did Oli's government do, Dr. Jaiswal? I don't think they did anything but almost were mute spectators. Of course, they used force, but they did not see that this was also a signal of what the impending disaster which was to hit Nepal. Dr. Jaiswal.
Actually, the protesters joined the streets with two major demands. One was the removal of ban on social media and the corruption issue. Actually, these people were posting lots of videos on social media how the life of the leader had changed, how their children are having wonderful life in Switzerland, having wonderful travels, luxurious life and all. So when they were posting all those videos against corruption, the social media was banned, and that is how the protest started. And you all know that yesterday almost 90 people were killed, more than 400 were injured, and that took the movement in a different turn where they had new demands. They wanted the Home Minister to resign, and he did it yesterday. Prime Minister was asked to resign. He did it just today, a few hours ago. And new demands have emerged at the moment. We can see that they're asking for dissolution of Parliament. They're also asking for collective resignation of all the members of Parliament so that they can have new election under interim constitution, interim government. They're asking to have an interim government under the leadership of one individual whom they can accept mutually. And they have also asked suspension of all senior officials who had ordered shooting during the violent crackdown. So you can see that how things are unfolded. Today it was a very sad day. There is massive destruction of properties. Supreme Court was on fire. President House in fire. Parliament, the houses of all the major leaders are burned down. You know, the police stations, district offices are all on fire. So it's like a very tense day today. Airport is shut down. It's very dark cloud everywhere. You can't see anything at the moment. So it's a very difficult situation we are going through at the moment in Kathmandu.
All right, let me also go to Gajendraji. Gajendraji, the thing is that, you know, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer is not very unusual in the subcontinent. I mean, it is rampant everywhere. Dynastic politics is rampant everywhere. But I'm asking you, Gajendraji, that what we are seeing on the screen right now, you know, which is really anarchy, you know, it is the extreme of monarchy. This is anarchy. I mean, there is no rule of law. Like Sachin was saying, we do not know where we stand unless we hear from the army as to what is going to happen next. I want to ask you, sir, don't you think, Gajendraji, apart from maybe dynastic politics could have been forgiven, maybe the Nepo kids would have been forgiven, but what the people of Nepal are not able to forgive is rampant corruption. For instance, would you like to talk about how Lekhak, who actually resigned, the Home Minister, that visa scandal, the visa scam, where crores and crores of money was made, Gajendraji. And it's not as if the ruling dispensation was unaware of it. It knew very well, but it sat on it.
The whole thing is as I told, that is the whole thing is the because of our bad governance since the last 33 years, especially since a decade when we imposed the new constitution. Our people, in Nepalese people, even I, as a common man, expecting much more changes in Nepalese economy, Nepalese society, Nepalese poverty, also improve in poverty. But there are some lacking. They are imposing their data, manipulated data to prove that they give they eradicated poverty, but there is no employment generation since last 1 year. High employment generation, no high
Right.
economic activities since last one decade. Even in last 3 years, Nepalese economy is going to in sluggish.
Yes.
And what government people and the other political party cadres are
Right. Gajendraji, and you know, I just want to highlight that it's not as if this is one government which did it. Every subsequent government, and like you said, for the past decade and more, have done this. They have seen to it that the people are kept in a state where they have no other go but to go out and start, you know, earning a living or just be frustrated, which results in this. Sachin, tell me something. Oli salary apparently was 65,000 rupees. It is not just about Oli. It's about several others whose children study in, you know, fancy schools, in finishing schools in Switzerland. They go for fancy holidays. Somewhere the young said, where is our share? And the share is not the share of others, but what is due to a young Nepali youth today. Sachin.
Yeah, and that was very questionable right from the start, because when you see the history of majority of the political leaders, they come from very common background. In fact, they come from below average background. People know which village they've come from, and it's not like the earlier times where your actions are not traced, right? So only by pictures you can figure out which brand of watch you're wearing, which brand of bag you're carrying, which brand of T-shirt you're wearing, and which car you're driving, right? So people can zoom, people can actually understand what kind of life you're living. And to be honest, I mean the average income of Nepali and the declared income of all the politicians cannot actually fetch that kind of life. So that was evident. People were angry. There were allegations of politicians and their kids living a very very prosperous life, and the source not being able to not being able to trace. So that was there, and that anger was there, that went into the Gen Z population. And when that was out in TikTok, there was no other way. People did come in. And see, we've never been a prosperous country. We've always had our struggles. We've always been on the bottom when it comes to wealth and prosperity. And when people see, for instance, leaders, the top leaders, and their background, if you see their ancestral homes, the place they come from, and without any business or without any kind of income sources, they're living a life that is unjustifiable. So that was there, that the rage was there, the anger was there. But I think that is again the secondary thing. The thing that people were most angry with, if you compare the Nepali politics with movies, there were certain villains in people's head. We're winning and winning and winning consistently, and people had this feeling of being defeated, and they wanted those villains to be defeated, and they were consistently winning, and they anticipated for a climax, and the climax has come in the worst possible way. So that is what has happened today.
Right. Those are the visuals unfolding on your screens about the chaos which reigned Nepal for the past 2 days. Not only Prime Minister Oli has resigned, but today we also broke the news first here on News9 of President Patel also resigning. A state actually now is in a state of the country, I beg your pardon, seems to be in a state of chaos. But the experts on this panel, on this show, say that it shall perhaps, they shall hit the ground running, and they're waiting for further instructions. But it's very important right now that after Oli has resigned, and we saw the helicopter which actually took him to safety, if we have those visuals. But meanwhile, look at that, smoke billowing, smoke curling up and rising to the skies of Nepal, buildings being torched, there is arson, there is violence. That's how Nepal looks like today. But we were talking about Oli. What next for Oli? KP Sharma Oli, he is now out of office. Now the spotlight would have shifted on President Ramchandra Patel, but then the point is he's also resigned, and one has to see that, what do we do about the constitutional crisis which is actually, unfolded in Nepal. The basic point is that the challenge for Oli is survival. Now the thing is that we are also comparing the situation which is unfolding in Nepal to the condition that unfolded in Bangladesh as well as in Sri Lanka, and we can perhaps look at it in a three window as to it is almost the same story with a little tweaking here and there as to how things unfolded in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, and also in Nepal now. Now, Oli's political base is now fractured. 5 ministers, of course, had deserted him. His cabinet, before he resigned, his residence in Bhaktapur was set ablaze by protesters. Inside the party too, there was dissent brewing, raising doubts over whether he could retain influence or risk being sidelined, which he was. We saw how he ultimately had to give in, and he buckled. Young students, young protesters who've been on the streets of Nepal just stood there, took it on their chest and saw to it that what do they think or what do they perceive as a corrupt government which is so low on delivery of public service was ousted. Now, Article 76 in Nepal lays out multiple pathways. The president first invites the leader of the majority party. If that fails, coalition-backed MPs are considered, and if there is no consensus, then the leader of the largest party is given 30 days to prove numbers. Now, the point is that all that now is in the past, but then who knows? Oli could attempt a comeback through this route, but his eroding support makes the climb very, very difficult. The crisis, however, is about more than Oli across South Asia. Youth-led movements are forcing presidents into pivotal roles. Nepal, Podale, of course, saw to it that he was trying to steer the transition, but alas, he also decided to throw in a stall in Sri Lanka. As I said, the same thing happened. Let me now go to the guest and talk about what is it that will happen to Oli next. Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, Oli's future, as it were. We saw how Sheikh Hasina was also ousted from that country. We saw how Sri Lankan streets were full of pro-democracy, students who were saying that they want system in the country. Sheikh Hasina actually had to take refuge and even now cannot go back to that country. Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, do you think Oli has a similar fate awaiting him? Dr. Jaiswal, can you hear me, sir?
Can you hear me?
Now I can, sir.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I think the fate of former Prime Minister KP Oli, or you can say Prachanda or Devbai, is similar, where I don't think they will have a space in the Nepalese politics anymore. At least not for next 5-10 years. I don't know how long. Sometimes the South Asian have very short memory, but I think they will not have faith because the whole movement is against that. The people are frustrated with the old senior people who have served the parliament multiple times in last 20 years and they have not delivered. Rather, they have imposed corruption and all kind of things are there in this country. And they are the ones who are responsible for that. So I think be it KP Oli or Deva, I think they are not going to have any space in politics here in Nepal. Second, as far as them leaving the country, I don't think they will have to leave the country like in Bangladesh. But I think this might be charged with corruption charges. They should be ready to go through the independent corruption investigations. So I don't know whether they are prepared for that or not.
Sachin, let me bring you in here. Sachin, I was reading about this. Apparently, Oli had planned what is called, he had constituted a 15-member high-level governance reform recommendation commission. Does it look like a joke to you in retrospect, sitting here today? I mean, good governance, because that was part of his 7-point deal, apparently. What good governance? Today, do you think that here was a man who was just occupying his seat despite announcing such fancy things, but did not move from his chair? And it is not just about him, but like Dr. Jaiswal was saying, the same goes for Prachanda, the same goes for Madhav Nepal, several others leaders who came, who occupied, but who did nothing absolutely. Sachin. Please unmute, Sachin.
Okay, so when I was in grade 8, I saw the revolution, the massive revolution of 2007, and I was pretty young back then. And after that revolution, we all felt like, it would be a new Nepal where things would improve, would be as developed as Singapore or Switzerland that the leaders promised. And we're promised big times. The leaders promised us left, right, and center. They promised an economic growth of somewhere around 21-22%, and they made full out of us. They took a Mickey out of us every time. And when there was this election in 2017, Oli was by far the most popular leader in Nepal, and his party actually got the mandate to run the government as well. But his ego subsided that mandate, and then he lost the entire plot. And Oli already had betrayed Nepalese once. Despite that, he again was successful to make his party the second largest party in the previous election, and he still was in contention to lead. And this coalition was already a very unnatural, impure coalition, because seldom do you see in a Westminster system where the first and the second party form a coalition to run the government. And that's what happened. But the Nepalese, they accepted this only at one cost: to change the loopholes, to correct the mistakes in the constitutions, the problems in the constitutions, right? But then after the government was formed, nobody actually cared about those promises, and people were already angry. And every decision of his, and my party included, who represented us in the government, and I'm not going to put my party into a safe harbor anyway. They were partners. The leaders were partners of Oli in this, and there's so many corruption allegations, rightly as you said, the land corruption, the other kind of corruptions, and I come back to my earlier point that the Nepali people were feeling lost, defeated, and they wanted a villain, and Oli was the number one villain, and he was still in his massive ego ride of sustaining this, and eventually he lost the plot completely when he banned social media. And social media ban, I think, was a massive thing, because you can understand that so many of Nepalese youngsters live abroad, and the only way they can connect to their families is through social media. They've hardly taught their parents to use messenger chats and WhatsApps and Vibers and all those, and when those were turned off, I think Nepalese then lost the whole plot. And there were warning signs inside the party as well. We were consistently trying to put this forward to the leadership, but the leadership was completely in its own power ride. And eventually, Nepal has come to this situation now. We don't know what's the way ahead.
Absolutely. And gentlemen, please do stay with us, because up next, what we are going to show you is my colleague, Vipin Chaube, who is on ground zero and bringing us a report from Nepal, where protesters are seen celebrating KP Oli's ouster. Take a look, and then we get back to the debate.
नेपाल की संसद को चलते हुए देखिए, विद्रोह को देखिए, जश्न जनता को देखिए, युवाओं का आक्रोश देखिए, और घंटों से ये आक्रोश चल रहा है। गाड़ियों में आग लगा दी गई, संसद भवन को पूरा जला दिया गया, पूरा संसद भवन परिसर बर्बाद हो गया। जनता यहाँ से हटने को तैयार नहीं है, तरह तरह के स्लोगन्स ला रहे हैं, और माइकों पर देखिए लोग झंडा लेकर जश्न मना रहे हैं, वहाँ पर देखिए जश्न मनाया जा रहा है, और समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि हो क्या रहा है। और इस बीच सिक्योरिटी पर्सनल्स को भागना पड़ा यहाँ से जान बचाने के लिए, क्योंकि इस पब्लिक को रोकना किसी के बस की बात नहीं है। जैसे तैसे सिक्योरिटी पर्सनल्स यहाँ से और पूरा परिसर आप देखेंगे अगर तो हैरान करता है, और जनता को इससे हासिल क्या हुआ ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा मुझे कि आप संसद भवन को जलाकर क्या मैसेज देना चाहते थे। आप सरकार को हटाने का मैसेज दीजिए, समझ में आता है। और देखिए लोग कैसे कुर्सियां संसद भवन के परिसर के अंदर लेकर जा रहे हैं, बाल्टी लेकर जा रहे हैं, और इसके अलावा देखिए पूरा संसद भवन परिसर कैसे काले धुएं के गुबार से भर गया है, चारों तरफ धुआं ही धुआं जल रहा है पूरा संसद परिसर। और इस बीच और बाइकर्स यहाँ पर आ गए हैं जो जश्न मना रहे हैं।
Let me go to Gajendra ji, to speak more on this crisis which is unfolded. Gajendra ji, kya hoga ab Oli ka? According to you, what is the future that you foresee for Oli? Sachin said, well, Oli is the main villain. He's been seen to be a villain. But then, how do you view his? I mean, let's not talk about the political future. I think that's completely, there's curtains for him. But other than that, what do you think? Do you think that, he will go into oblivion, he'll be eclipsed from the history of Nepal? What will happen to him? Or he'll have to face, a commission, an inquiry commission, as it were?
My English is so weak, so I want to talk in Hindi.
अरे कोई बात नहीं सर, बोलिए।
आप जैसे कि आपने बोला है कि सिर्फ यहाँ ओली की बात नहीं है, अब जितने भी पॉलिटिकल लीडर है, आज के प्रदर्शन में जितने भी युवाओं ने जहाँ भी आगजनी किया है, सारे नेताओं के घरों में टारगेट की उन्होंने आगजनी किया है। काठमांडू से लेकर धनगढ़ी तक, इलाम से लेकर उदयपुर तक, सारे जगहों में उन्होंने आगजनी किया है। अब ये भ्रष्टाचार की मुद्दा जो थी, अभी तक हमारे यूथों ने अपने दिल में सिर्फ नोटिस करके रखा था। अब जैसे कि सचिन ने बोला है कि नेपाल में इतने सालों से जो बड़े बड़े भ्रष्टाचार के केस है, उनको दबाया गया है। अब ओली का सिर्फ ओली की बात नहीं है, अगर स्वच्छ छवि के स्वच्छ नागरिकों का सिविल गवर्नमेंट जो बनेगा और वो लोग चाहेंगे तो दे हैव टू कन्विंस इट।
All right, let me come back to you, Gajendra ji. Sagun Sundar Lavati, let me come to you. Sagun Sundar Lavati, what is the sense that we get? Although it's been talked about Gen Z, I see there is anger which is cutting across gender, which is cutting across even age. I don't think that it is only, yes, they may have lit the fire, you know, to use a phrase. I don't mean literally, but it is cutting across. It is years and decades of frustration. Sagun Sundar Lavati, how do you see the future of Oli even as we speak?
Oli is gone politically. It's only about how do we chart our next coming days ahead, you know, in terms of setting up an inquiry to probe corruption cases which are large scale. That is one of the demands in the street that will happen, I guess. And another is how do we chart a constitutional process, a political process forward. These are the two fundamental issues that Nepal is actually facing as of now. But after the resignation of the president, we are in a kind of a political or constitutional limbo. We don't know. We're not sure. I mean, we don't have a basis to move forward as such. But again, this had to happen, and this is something similar to Bangladesh in terms of considering the fact that the Nepali Congress and the UML government together, they had a clear majority in the House of Representatives. Not only that, minus a few seats, they could actually go ahead and amend the constitution with a 2/3 majority. So they had such powers. But again, they thought they could take the people for ride. They could throw their weight around that, and that's what they're paying for. Again, it's good. We don't have these leaders anymore. But again, we have a very fluid situation as to how we move forward with our political.
Exactly. That's what Mr. Lavati, you really brought up a very, very good point, that we have a tricky situation. So let me go to Sachin. Sachin, it's about people. It's about governance. It's about administration. It's about poor people who need milk, who need food, who need shelter. There are babies. There are ailing people. It's a crisis which is unfolding, apart from the fact that there is an internal crisis, of course, there is a humanitarian crisis, Sachin. And what do you think? I mean, how is that going to get resolved, as it were? Nepal has been very resilient. We've seen, mishaps earlier on. We've seen a massacre as well, and you come together. It's resilient like most South Asian countries. But as of today, even as we speak, there are twin crises. There are two crises, as it were. Where do you think the help is going to come for the people to settle?
Again, I mean, we are in an unprecedented situation, and anybody who claims to know everything, I don't think is right at this point of time. As I said, our constitution has not imagined a vacuum like this. The prime minister and the president both resigning. So for me to claim that this is the path forward, or this is where the country will move forward, is something which will not be valid. As you said, I mean, there was massive crisis. There was underlying crisis. There was underlying anger. People did show some bit of that in the election as well. They were looking for alternatives. They were even waiting for the parties to give them alternatives. And it's not that UML and Congress did get their fair share of a chance from the people, because if you see the deputy mayor of Kathmandu, despite Balin being from political area, the deputy mayor is a UML cadre, and she got a ticket. She was a new person in the politics, and people trusted her, and they voted for her. That's the kind of some kind of change, internal change, that people demanded from the political parties. But the leadership of the political party, and I'm not going to spare my own party as well. So leadership of all top three political parties, especially the establishment political parties, despite the Maoists being out of the government right now, it cannot be called non-establishment. It's also an establishment political party. So these three political parties, everything for granted. And people were not ready to trust their effort. And let me tell you one thing. So Oli thought that he could outsmart everybody, and what he said is, The social media ban was because the international multinational tech companies were not willing to pay taxes in Nepal. But turns out they do pay taxes. Meta pays tax. What they wanted was a complete control on social media, like they got it from TikTok. After Prasanna banned TikTok last year, when it's open, 19 lakhs of TikTok videos were deleted because of government's request. So people were not willing to take that as well. So to sum it all, I think the leadership took everything for granted, the chances they got for granted, the trust that people devoted upon them, despite them failing again and again for granted. And this inability came out, the inability to
Right.
actually govern also came out, and hence the scenario that you're witnessing right now.
Dr. Jaiswal, we see there are two poles, extreme poles. One was, pro-democracy protests, anti-monarchy. And then we saw monarchy, once again, bring back royalty. You look at Nepal today. Where does the country want to be? Doctor, can you hear me?
Monarchy at all in this whole process. Monarchy protest was a couple of months ago and it's over. Today it's about corruption and no corruption. So that is the major demand here at the moment. People want change. People want single leader of each party to give space to the youth. People want them to deliver. So this is the major demand here: accountability, transparency, rule of law, freedom of expression, free media. These are the demands today of what the youth are demanding. The youth of Nepal not like monarchy at all, but we are bringing the debate today, which is not necessary. Second, where are we heading to? Again, we are heading to a more democratic space that will be created. I mean, it might take some time, it might take some longer time to come with that situation. Obviously, the safe landing requires a lot of transition are sometimes very complicated. We are scared of those as well, but we expect that it will be more transparent. Our leadership will be more accountable. This should be a lesson for for generations, because we remove monarchy for all those that happened in the past. We don't want new king to come back to power again. We don't want new leaders to emerge as a new elite who will again
All
try
right.
to exploit people, go for corruption, have a
Okay.
lavish tour around the world where people are starving, where people's basic demands are not met.
All
So
right.
I think today the demand is just for corruption-free
Okay.
Nepal.